to this forum for the candidates running in Districts 2 and 4 for the South Bend Common Council. We're so glad to see you all this evening. There are some folks watching us by Facebook Live, and we'll also have a recording available after the event that is being captured by that camera back there. So there will be plenty of opportunities to share this forum with folks who could not be here this evening. But of course, we always encourage people to come out for best sight, best sound, best networking opportunity, free food, and an ability to have your questions answered. And many of you, I see, have been sending up note cards. So we appreciate those questions, and we'll get those to the candidates. On the back of your event and program, you see our upcoming events for the American Democracy Project and the League of Women Voters. And we have a busy week next week. And on the 8th of April, we'll be in Elkhart hosting a mayoral debate for the Democratic candidates. The winner will face the Republican in November. And then on the 9th, we'll be back here in South Bend for candidate speed dating with the mayoral candidates. So we hope you'll come for that. You can make a reservation, go to our Facebook page. You don't need a Facebook account to do that. It's just at IUSB AVP, and you'll be able to grab an Eventbrite reservation to make sure that you get that chance to talk to all of the candidates. If for some reason you're unable to make a reservation, just go ahead and show up. I'm sure we'll find a spot for at least the folks here in this room. On the 10th, we are holding a community forum on the opioid epidemic in Michiana, and we have a wonderful group of panelists. We'll also have resource tables and some breakout sessions where people can talk more with the panelists. And we have folks representing a wide variety of different fields. So we hope to see many people there as well as we talk about solutions in our community. We do have a brand new YouTube channel, and it is American Democracy Project at IU South Bend, and we are posting up our events so that makes them more accessible and easier to post to the League of Women Voters and AVP websites. You'll also see candidate statements that folks made at Meet the Candidates. So you have individual statements that you can share out with folks who maybe aren't here tonight or missed a previous forum, and help to promote candidates that way, or at least allow people to hear from those candidates with their short 90-second introductions. Our other forums are also available. Finally, these candidates and the other municipal candidates running in South Bend took time to provide answers to a series of questions that the League of Women Voters and American Democracy Project asked them as part of an online guide, vote411.org. So you just go to vote411.org. If you type in your address, you'll get just those folks who are on your ballot, and you can compare the candidates side by side in terms of their answers to those questions. So that's another way to learn more about the candidates. We are very blessed, very fortunate to have a wide variety of candidates here in South Bend for this municipal election season. And so our goal has been to bring you lots of information and also help you share that information with others. And that leads to a huge thank you to these candidates who have made themselves so available for speed dating and a forum and Meet the Candidates general session at the library, as well as the Vote 411 guide. And that's just for us. And we know there are other groups who are hosting them as well. So they really have spent a lot of time, and so let's move quickly so we can hear more from them this evening. We're going to start today with 90-second opening statements where candidates really can tell you a little bit about themselves and the experiences they would bring to the job of a person serving on the Common Council here in the city of South Bend. We will then move to a series of policy questions or other questions that you all have submitted. And then finally, we'll close with 30-second statements. The length of response for those policy questions will depend on the nature of the question. 30-second speed rounds are popular, so I'll warn the candidates about that. And sometimes a narrow question means that's all we'll need. And And so we will call out the time for each of those responses. It'll be the same for all candidates, and the order of response will rotate. We have timekeepers in the back. This is for the benefit of the candidates to keep them on track. So those will be counting you down. We will hear first from Amanda Gobert Conrad, and with an opening statement.
First, thank you for getting my name right. It is a little complicated. As she said, my name is Amanda Gobert Conrad, and I am your 2nd District Common Council candidate, because I believe that everyone should have a seat at the table. As a foster parent, I've chosen to live my life as an advocate for the voiceless. As a mom of teenagers who are here in the audience, I know how disenfranchised our youth feel. As a renter, I have experienced firsthand how powerless it feels to not have your voice on important policy matters heard. These are the reasons that I am running for Common Council. After college, I spent time in Washington, D.C. as an intern. Legislation that I helped research and draft is now federal law. 15 years ago, I moved back to the area and fell in love with my hometown all over again. Much progress has been made in South Bend, but there is still much to do. Our downtown progress has been amazing, but we need to ensure that progress makes its way back to our neighborhoods. We need safe neighborhoods with sidewalks that are accessible to all. We need streets that can be driven without playing Dodge the Crater. We need our police officers to be community partners. On average, 3 families per day are evicted from their homes in South Bend. We need to start addressing the eviction rate in order to start addressing homelessness appropriately. The 2nd District is home to some of our oldest neighborhoods in South Bend, and we need to honor these neighborhoods and invest in the local economies. If elected, my promise to you is simple. I will advocate for the 2nd District because I believe that as a community, we are only as strong as our weakest among us. I humbly ask for your vote and your support on May 7th.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Now we move to Henry Davis Jr.
Good evening. Henry Davis Jr. I am a citizen and a resident of South Bend, Indiana. I have been for my entire life. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a son. I'm the son of the city. I spent 8 years on the South Bend Common Council as a representative for the 2nd District City of South Bend, where I was able to pass well over 20 legislative items. Many of them have become ordinances that we actually can see and point to right now. I'm an advocate. Currently, I am the president of the Cell Park Neighborhood Alliance, where we work extremely hard to produce outcomes that benefit the residents in the Cell Park area. I'm a former athlete, and I'm a competitor. I'm a leader, and I'm also a visionary. And I look forward to today's forum. Thank you.
Thank you. We hear next from Jasmine Brown.
Good evening, all. First, let me take the time to thank the American Democracy Project, League of Women Voters, IUSB, and Professor Binding for having us this evening, and thank you for all attending. My name is Jasmine Brown, and I am the candidate for the 2nd District Common Council. I'm a mother, single mother of 3 children. I put all 3 of my kids through public schools here in South Bend, and my district my legacy spans 70 years in District 2, from my grandmother to my father, and to me now in my family in District 2. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame, and I'm currently getting my master's degree from Marian University. And I am the epitome of the individual on the West Side. See, I am the 54% of the working class poor. I am the individual whose house has been wrecked by violence and senseless violence in my community. I am the individual that attends when kids dying in the streets and the negative activity that happens. I am the individual that is giving back to my community by sitting next to my neighbors and trying to find solutions to the problems. And more importantly, I am the one that has sat through in my community and given back to youth advocacy through coaching and refereeing and participating with our youth. Why am I a choice? I'm a choice because I am ready to move forward. We cannot go backwards in our community. We cannot afford it. It's time for creative ideas, innovation to lead us forward in District 2, and for us to have a rightful piece of the pie. It's time for us to improve our neighborhoods, reduce the violence, and prevent violence in our community. It's time for the quality of life and safety to improve in our community. It's also time for the infrastructure to be repaired. I'm results driven, and I will guide you in the next time for District 2. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, District 2 candidates. Fantastic, getting right there on the time. I guess a round of applause for all 3 of them. Good opening statements. Lots of information And next, we will have an opportunity to hear from the District 4 Democratic candidates, starting first with Dave Matthews.
Hi, I'm Dave Matthews. I'm from South Bend, went to public schools, Harlan, Madison, and Adams. I've lived in, 4 or 5 different houses in different areas of the 4th District. This is my home. I'm running for city council because I want to help. I like solving problems, fixing problems. Over the past 8 years, I've done a fair amount of business development, specifically in the East Bank neighborhood of our district in downtown South Bend. I've seen firsthand the frustrations of city bureaucracy getting in the way of the administration wanting to make it easier for people to do what they want. I've seen resources and money spent on government efficiencies that should go towards better civic and social justice concerns. I've worked with the city on getting weather amnesty for the homeless. I helped open up the first dog park in the city on Thomas Avenue. I care a lot about South Bend. I'm invested here, and I want to help solve problems and make our city a better place. And I think I bring a unique skill set as an entrepreneur and a business person who both grew up poor on free and reduced lunch, but then went to school, got an education, came back home, and tried to start making a change. And I just here to ask your permission to help guide our city council. Thank you.
Thank you. We hear next from Melvin Blakely Jr.
Hi, my name is Melvin T. Blakely Jr. I am a 20-year police veteran. I transferred here to South Bend in the act of trying to be the chief of IU South Bend. At the time I was at Indiana University Northwest, we became, under my leadership, we became the safest campus in the state of Indiana. Within 3 years I was there as supervisor. Within the time also that I was not the supervisor, we made sure that we was in the top 2. One of the things that I believe in as a former police officer, I want to bring that type of attitude with the teamwork with the city council to make sure that we have a safer city, not just for our adults, but for our youth. Things are getting bad, and I want to make sure that we are a part of that team that's making that happen. I don't want to be just a city councilman. I want to be a part of the city council team. That's one thing that I don't hear a lot about. It's not about the different issues, but it's about being a teamwork, about a team player. So that's the thing that we need to start doing, is looking at everyone as a team player, being involved. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Also, I spent time with my program. I have a foundation called Choice Foundation. It stands for Teaching IU Safety. I've given back to the community. Even at the time, I'm a quadruple amputee. So even at the time when I was in a wheelchair, I was out giving out blankets, hoodies, clothes. Down in Tent City, I was feeding the homeless and doing everything that needs to be done in the communities. So I'm not the type of person that sits still, as you can see. Even my legs being cut off with 2 prosthetic legs, I'm still the type of person. I get out there and I get it done. There's no excuse.
Thank you. And our final candidate for District 4 is Troy Warner.
Thank you for coming this evening. I appreciate you being here. I've worked as a laborer and electrician. I've dug ditches and built buildings here in our community. I've championed and pushed for kids on the west side to have the opportunity to work on a job site, gaining skills on a construction site. I've stood on a street corner and protested for our local tax dollars to be used to hire local contractors and employ local workers, keeping livable wages and benefits here in our community. I've been a public defender for kids who had every disadvantage in life, fighting to get them any advantage that we could give them. I've sat in a jail cell with my clients and prayed for salvation, for forgiveness, and for healing for their clients, for that person's victims. I've taken on the slumlords in courtrooms. I've lost some, and I've won some. For almost 2 decades now, I've been in our schools, churches, shops, community centers, courtrooms, and jails, rallying and advocating for issues important to our community, for a better life for all of our community. I love South Bend. I love this community. I love all the people of our community. I am running for the 4th District seat for South Bend Common Council because I want to be your advocate. I want to serve our community. I am running to be an advocate, a listener, a bridge builder, a problem solver, and to represent you, my neighbors. But I need your support and I need your vote on May 7th, so please vote Troy Warner for District 4. Thank you.
Thank you for all of the District 4 candidates. We go now to our first question for the candidates, and each candidate will have a minute to tell us what are your top 2 priorities if elected to council. And we'll start first with Henry Davis Jr. from District 2.
My top 2 priorities is which ones? My priority is to make sure that the district representatives of the districts, second district of South Bend is getting an advocate. I'm not necessarily, I don't know if I have 2 top priorities. I know 2 things that need to be looked at as council reconvenes in 2020 January. I know that we need to make sure that our budget deficit is being taken care of. I think that that is a really high priority at this point, because if we're in a debt of $300 million, how do we offer city services that are robust for our residents? The other thing that I think that we need to really concentrate on as another priority is making sure our infrastructure is being taken care of in a good manner.
I don't know how many potholes we dodged on the way here today. I don't know how many curves that we're missing on the way here today. So I think that budgeting is number 1, it's paramount, and number 2 is infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll ask the candidates to just pass the mic. We're going to double mic it just so that, especially for those who are trying to watch from home, but also folks who may struggle to hear here in the auditorium. So thank you very much, and we will turn next to Jasmine Brown.
All right, my top 2 priorities, let's start first with neighborhood revitalization. We need to be intentional about our neighborhoods. That means investment needs to come back into our neighborhoods. The infrastructure, much like he just talked about, is definitely paramount and key. And we need to bring an economic base to quell the food desert and to quell the economic desert inside of District 2. And we're talking about diversifying businesses. I'm tired of just liquor stores and gas stations. We need something bigger and better. And that also means to build our small businesses. Education to our community members is paramount to make sure that they understand that health and quality of life are vital and important. We need to also make sure that we have development without displacement, and supporting our CDCs as well as supporting our neighborhood associations. As well as we need to make sure we have youth advocacy. My past already speaks for youth advocacy, but I want to make sure that they understand that they are a sustainable community and they are our future. We need to reduce and prevent violence, build our economy to help support them, and make sure that they know that their investment back into our neighborhoods is paramount. Last and foremost, I want to make sure that we build partnerships with city and community organizations to make sure we get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will go to the final District 2 candidate here this evening, Amanda Gobert-Conrad.
Thank you. So also neighborhood revitalization, although I would like to use the Detroit method. Detroit is actually the only city in the country that has a community benefits ordinance. What this does is it makes it so that if you want to come into Detroit, if you want to use TIF dollars, tax abatements, whatever, you actually have to prove that what you're doing is going to benefit the community. You have to talk to the neighbors. You have to build a coalition with the neighborhoods so that you're not just coming in as a business. They actually did this recently with Chevy, and that's where the ordinance came around. So I would like us to see us adopt that. There are a lot of parallels between South Bend and Detroit. I know that seems kind of strange to say because we're a smaller city, but they're facing the same Rust Belt challenges that we're facing. And I really think that we need to start looking at some of these other cities and seeing what they're doing. And that's actually my top priority, is putting an ordinance like that in place for South Bend.
Thank you. We will hear now from the District 4 candidates, starting with Melvin Blakely Jr.
My first 2 priorities, number 1, my first priority would be is to make sure that South Bend will have more safer communities. I echoed these words before, but Sir Robert Peel said that the police is the community and the community is the police. So I will try to assist on neighborhood community organizations to try to make our city a lot safer than what it is. Put more police out there on the street. Do what we can to increase the patrolling around even downtown, and make sure that we change the name, that the reputation that most people are saying that South Bend is one of the most dangerous cities to live in. It's not. Also, one of the other things would be, there are a lot of maybe business owners here that feel like that we don't really get looked at as small business. So we need to put the money back to the community not just the outskirts of South Bend, not just downtown, but there are some small businesses that do not get attention and do not get the funding that's needed to run their business and try to get advertisement out there for those businesses that's out there. Thank you.
Thank you, and now we hear from Troy Warner.
Thank you. So infrastructure funding will be a priority on day one. The city must take a proactive approach in preventive positions on infrastructure. Flooding, sewage backups, potholes, crumbling sidewalks, and unlit streets cannot become the new norm for our city. Issue number 2 would be addressing crime proactively. I would like to see the city address the problems of crime and youth violence by increasing mentoring and offering solutions for youth to overcome their underlying social conditions. I'd like to see an expansion of the group violence intervention program that Isaac Hunt and his team is taking on. I'd like to see more partnering with community organizations in those efforts, more partnering with Mamas Against Violence, and more funding towards those groups. Additionally, our jails cannot continue to be the de facto treatment center and mental health ward for the city. We need to put more funding towards mental health and substance abuse treatment. Thank you.
Thank you, and now we hear from David Matthews.
So, top 2 priorities. I mean, for the city, we have, the most important thing the city council does is set the budget and prioritize the budget. We're going to a fiscal curve. It's going to be tough. I love some of the ideas that are being mentioned here today, but funding is going to be tight for the next 4 or 5 years. I think so that's a challenge. But side projects, meeting and talking with neighbors, canvassing and knocking on some of your doors, I'm shocked by how few people participate in their neighborhoods and how many people don't know that people live up and down the streets from each other. And I've served on 2 neighborhood boards, NENC and Howard Park, and we cover a lot of area, and it's tough to get people to come to a neighborhood meeting. So push money and allocate money into our neighborhood councils to try and have smaller groups. So we have the neighborhood councils for the big areas of South Bend, but then we have small, like several block groups that can interact with police, do safety patrols, and try and help build up the community from the block level.
Thank you. Our next question will be a 30-second question. This voter would like to know, can you tell us, from your perspective, what is the actual job and what are the responsibilities of a common council member?
30 seconds.
And 30 seconds. Primary responsibility. This goes first to Jasmine Brown.
Absolutely. The first thing, as David mentioned, is budgeting and making sure that we're not giving land away for $1 on these tax abatements, and as money comes back into the community, we got to get rid of tax abatements. So let's start there. Number 2 is we need to make sure that we invest in our neighborhoods, make sure that our residents, the people that we are serving, have their voice heard and they are participating in government. That's number 2. So if I'm going to say that the top 2 priorities that we have is budgeting and making sure we're responsive to our residents.
Thank you. We will hear next from Amanda Gobert.
That's a really hard question to answer in 30 seconds. It's basically to be an advocate, I believe. Obviously, everybody knows that you have to budget appropriately. But if you're not listening to what your constituents need, if you're not out there in the neighborhoods, if you're not at the neighborhood association meetings, if you're not at the people's houses who do not have neighborhood associations, then you're not doing your job. You have to be out there listening to your constituents.
Thank you. Henry Davis Jr.
Thank you. You're the checks and balances for the mayor system, the mayor, the executive branch. So as a council, you are there to make sure that the checks and balances are put in place for the 14th board. So your duties are to look over the budget, make sure the budget is passed with the necessary needs that come from the folks in the neighborhood. The second part is that you are defining and building legislation that will positively impact the entire city of South Bend. You only have 2 jobs. The third, as an advocate, yeah, you can go around and do certain different things, but your main job, what you get paid for, is budgeting and making sure that budget is doing what it's supposed to do for the city, and then also making sure the legislation is impacting positively this whole entire city.
Thank you, thank you. All right. We don't want the applause to be more seconds than we give the candidates in the questions. All right, so let's go now to our District 4 candidates, and we will hear from Melvin Blakely Jr.
I would say that responsibility would be, like you're saying, be a legislative team member. I'm gonna use that word a lot, team member. Also to help assist with the city budgeting, and also to make sure that you are an ambassador for your district, ambassador for your city, to make sure that you're getting back to the community and getting back to the individuals, not to just get on the board and just get a paycheck.
Thank you. Troy Warner.
So the job and the responsibilities are one, the legislative, passing the ordinances, also handling the purse strings through the budgeting process, and making determinations in where funds will flow. 3 would be serving constituents, making sure that the services that the city are performing are actually being performed efficiently, being responsive to the concerns of your constituents. And 4 would be serving on committees that make a determination on policy that the city takes.
Thank you. Dave Matthews.
So number 1, city budget prioritized. Number 2, looking at the ordinances. And that's tough because you have to take both a long view of what's good for South in the long term, but also address some immediate concerns, and then keep an eye out for these unintended consequences, which pop up when we have a rule in the books that says you can't have more than 2 unrelated people living together, or you can't have you can burn wood, but only during sun up to sundown. So then if you're burning wood after sunset, well, some people might get a visit from the police, and you could get in trouble.
Thank you. Our next question we will actually start with the District 4 candidates. And you may have already mentioned some of this in your opening statements, but this voter said, can you tell me about what you have already contributed to South Bend? And this will start with Troy Warner. 60 seconds.
60 seconds. So I've lived in South Bend most of my life. I'm a graduate here of IUSB. I worked construction for over a decade, building buildings here in our community. I also then worked as an organizer for the Electrical Workers Local 153, advocating for local workers to be put on projects, fighting against right to work, and fighting other social justice issues. I've also given a lot to the community. I've coached Little League. I've worked for Stuff a Bus and collected cans for countless years. I work with the Youth Services Bureau, which does great work. And then I've also worked as a public defender, in which I've represented the indigent. I worked as a public defender at the Juvenile Justice Center, and worked with kids trying to improve their lives and keep them from further life of crime, in which their sentence could be much more serious and end up in Department of Corrections. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Matthews.
What have I done for South Bend? Okay, I helped revitalize the East Bank neighborhood in downtown South Bend. Built the first market rate housing along the East Bank, the first market rate housing on the East Bank in 30 years. I volunteer with JAG, Junior Achievement, teaching kids entrepreneurship in our elementary and high schools. Trio Upward Bound, I serve on the Northeast Neighborhood Northeast Neighborhood Council, the Howard Park Neighborhood Board. I helped found Verbalize Music Festival. I'm on the board for the Symphony. I'm on the board for the Art Museum. I'm on the board for the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, which it puts on Spark, which helps teach women at St. Mary's how to start businesses. I'm on the board for the South Bend Croc. I'm on the board for the South Bend Parks Foundation, for Century Center Buildings and Grounds, for BOMA. I helped start Sights and Sounds. There's 4 of us on the board for this concert series that goes every Thursday at Sights Park when they're not under construction. I helped start the first dog park on Niles Avenue, and I made a building available for the homeless for weather amnesty. So that's the list.
Man, how do you have time for job?
Thank you. And Melvin Blakely Jr.
I'm a new face on the board here, so I've been here for 4 years, and I've been active for at least 2 years. So I have initiated my program, Toys Foundation, teaching on youth safety. I have had a chili and chat program to get some of our leaders in the community to address some of the problems in the city with the crime. I opened a store on Mishawaka Avenue that was print t-shirts and things like that. I also minister at my church, facilitated several church events. Also, I have given away free turkeys, did a turkey drive, been down in Tent City, gave away food, helped the homeless. So within those few years, these are things that I've done. And I can tell you right now, remember our name, because there are many activities that to come in the future.
All right.
Thank you very much. We'll turn now to District 2, Amanda Gobert-Conrad.
Thank you. So I am also relatively new to the scene. I've been back in South Bend for a couple of years. I have organized a neighborhood cleanup in my own neighborhood. I've also written attendance bill of rights that I would hope to see South Bend adopt soon. I'm a foster parent, so that's been my main focus, is taking care of these kids who are on the front lines of the opioid crisis in our community. Currently, I'm working on organizing a luggage drive for these kids. Most of them, when they move from house to house, their stuff is put in trash bags. So I'm working on that, along with working on the Recovery Fest that'll be taking place in September at Potawatomi Park.
Thank you. Henry Davis Jr.
Thank you. I established a partnership between Potawatomi Zoo and Zoological Society, which obviously is something that's going on right now that is helping build our zoo into a 21st century zoo. I established many IT connections with the council. Council now uses laptops during the course of council meetings. There's some job growth within the tech park, which we call Ignition Park, with over 30 jobs came into the city of South Bend from Senate Bill 443. I also helped business expansion by bringing Lindy Grill to the city of South Bend downtown area. And to help also develop within the second district with the Charles Black Center and Martin King Center. Right now you see Charles Black Center with a $4.5 million expansion project that just took place. Summer jobs program through the city funded, legislative connection between, I drew a legislative connection between the South Bend Community School Corporation, South Bend County Council. Right now you're going to see an infrastructure improvement project between Falcon and Kentucky on Washington Avenue. The corridor project that we all are happy about, investments on Lincoln West and Washington Avenue. I offer that. And also stopped over 20+ homes from being demolished on Fellow Street several years ago. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And last but not least, Jasmine Brown.
Let me see. I go back 15 years of youth advocacy in our community. Like I mentioned before, I've been a coach, I've been a referee, I've been building our youth straight on, hands-on, inside community organizations. I work with engaging youth, engaging neighborhoods. I've been on the board for Robinson Community Learning Center. I'm the one that you hear at the mic, or now that you hear at the mic at the South Bend, our school board meetings, challenging the system to make sure it is fair and equitable for our parents and for our students, and to make sure that we are getting good curriculum in our communities, in our community schools. When it comes to the adults, I make sure that I'm at the Common Council meetings, challenging the Common Council to make sure that the weakest, most vulnerable voice is heard amongst our community. I also work heavily inside my neighborhood organization, Candy Park Neighborhood Association, and I partner with other neighborhood organizations near West and also across town on the east side as well. So when it comes to it, my advocacy stems mostly within the youth and my immediate community.
Thank you. The next question will go first to Henry Davis Jr. It says, how will you tackle South Bend's abysmal eviction rate? 60 seconds for your best ideas.
Jobs. we have to create jobs. We have to be a place where jobs can land safely in South Bend and also expand. We have to expand our tax base. We can't continue to be handlers of poverty. We have to get out of the cycle and poverty within our neighborhoods. We have to begin to offer jobs. We have to bring jobs into our community. If we do not do that, we're going to continue to have the same one question asked every 4 years. How do we change the eviction rate? We change the eviction rate by getting people employed. We change the eviction rate by making sure people have the tools to take care of their parents. If they have mortgage, or even if they have rent, that's how we change it.
Thank you. Jasmine Brown.
When it comes to this, definitely we need to make sure that economic base is there, especially in District 2, where we have a blight, we have a lack of businesses. With 1,000 houses in 1,000 days coming down, we have not only vacant lots, we have vacant blocks. Let's put some small businesses in there. What about flea markets and making sure that small business owners have an opportunity, opening up to our entrepreneurs. And it's not just economic base. We also need to make sure that we put in good housing for individuals, fair housing. There should be no reason that children are living in houses with 43-degree heat or lack of thereof, right? And there should be no reason that people are living in houses with mold. So just like the rental safety verification program that came in, we need to continue to work with our landlords and our residents. And we need to make sure that our residents have a voice when it comes down to city government and making sure that they are heard. When it comes down to it, we need to make sure that they have action and a process to go through. We need to also make sure that we start rebuilding our homeowner rate. It's not just about renters, it's also about homeowners. When you're a homeowner, you care about your community, you invest in your community a little bit more, and you begin to take back into your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Gilbert Conrad.
No, you're fine. Okay, I'm confused with number 2.
One microphone, 6 people.
So I take issue with the fact that renters are not invested in their community. They are. Renters are absolutely invested and they need to have a place at the table. They make up 40% of South Bend. When we're talking about eviction, it's on average 3 families per day in South Bend that are evicted. That's part of the reason why I've been focusing on tenants' rights. South Bend has a tenants' bill of rights, but it's weak. We need to make it stronger. We need to make it so that evictions are not arbitrary. We need to partner with Notre Dame and their law service and make sure that when a tenant is facing eviction, they have representation. A lot of times landlords can afford an attorney, but a tenant cannot. We also need to partner with our local financial institutions to create microloans, and that will increase the ability of people who may have an eviction on their record or may have less than stellar credit to be able to purchase a home. There's a lot more that I could go into it, and I only have 10 seconds left. I would love to talk to you about it if you have more, and I would love to share my proposal with you. It's something that I really, really hope South Bend adopts.
Thank you. We hear next from the District 4 candidates, starting with Dave Matthews.
So, high eviction rate, 2 things jump to mind. One is, if we have more better quality housing, that will drive down the cost of housing throughout our communities. We need to build newer housing, and we've not built a lot of new houses in the city limits for decades. Secondly, we need to improve employment income and small entrepreneurship throughout our community. So watching a documentary or so on Netflix that talks about if a white person has $1, that dollar will stay in the white community for like 30 days. If an Asian person has $1, that dollar will stay in the community, the Asian community, for like 7 or 8 days. If a black person has $1, that dollar will exit the black community within hours. How many hours?
Immediately.
6 hours. And that's because there's just not a lot of black businesses, but we also have a lot of people who are black in our community that are living in poverty. And so we have to acknowledge that as an issue, and then say, what can we do to make it easier for, well, I have ideas.
Thank you. Melvin Blakely Jr.
One of the things is, like I said, jobs, work programs, trades, something that will teach some of the individuals that don't have the education that can actually get out here and get a trade job. Also, we need to raise minimum wage. can admit that minimum wage is very low, and if you do a math on how much it takes for a family of 4 to live in a house, that family is not meeting that qualifications with both parents working at all. Sometimes the kids even have to contribute. So we need to get that going. Also, affordable housing. Some of these houses are extremely high to be rented out, or things like that. And also, short-term residents versus long-term residents. We have a lot of college students that move here, they move in for a short period of time, and you rent those places out to those individuals, and they're not there, for a long period of time. And also, one of the other things is helping homes or helping individuals with low income to purchase homes. We need to assist those to be able to stay here in the city and buy those homes and make it affordable for those that can pay those mortgages.
Thank you. Troy Warner.
So I spent a little bit of time in the courtrooms where these evictions are happening, and I can tell you the vast majority of them are due to delinquent or non-payment, right? So you have to do one of two things, as some of the other folks have said. You have to increase wages, or you have to decrease the cost of the housing, and to do that, you have to increase the supply. There are a couple good programs that are going in the city. One of those is a program that has been working on educating and training micro development, so teaching small investors how to take a property, rehabilitate the property, and then rent that property out or sell that property. These are usually on the more affordable end of the supply curve on the housing. I think also a program where you are increasing people's abilities to get access to funds. Most folks to come up with that 10% down payment is not something that's feasible.
Thank you. Our next question will go first to Melvin Blakely Jr., and it actually follows up on a point that you made. The state legislature currently limits local government from doing many things, including raising a minimum wage above the state or national average, or banning plastic bags. Do you think the city council members should lobby the state legislature and pass resolutions to change this kind of control? And I go first to you.
Yes, we can be that city that make that change. We can be the ones to say that we need to make that change happen. Minimum wage need to go up. I would say that I'm one of those who was affected by that. I started out working as a police officer, making several $1,000s a year, and once I was able to, had to retire because of medical reasons, I went down to just starting to work again. And now working as a minimum wage individual, I realized that you can't really get much done with that. So I would definitely lobby for the council to be one of the first ones to say, hey, we need to raise the minimum wage and be that city that everyone will really point at and talk about and say that we made that change. And we initiate the program.
Thank you. Troy Warner.
Thank you. So I think to move the legislature, no, I disagree that passing resolutions is the way to do that. Basically, a resolution is something not binding, and you're telling the legislature, we think you should do this. I've spent some time in the State House. I've talked to Tim Wesco and some other reps that you are the people that have to move. And you're not going to move them by passing a resolution, because they go back to their communities and say, I fought against South Bend, they wanted us to do this, and I said, no, South Bend, we're not doing this. I think the best way to do it is you have to go down there to the State House and you have to convince them, and you have to work to convince them that what you want is best, not only for the citizens of South Bend, but for the community and the people that they represent. Passing a non-binding resolution here, it makes everybody feel good, but I think you really got to roll up your sleeves and just advocate and lobby and push to make changes and push them hard, and making a resolution and passing that at the city level is not going to move a legislature who is an hour, 2-3 hours away. Thank you.
And just 10-second extension, Mr. Warner, would minimum wage be one of those issues worth fighting for or not?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Dave Matthews.
I would concur that at the city level, we can pass a resolution, we can feel good about ourselves, but it doesn't have much impact on the state. We're a very blue progressive dot in a very red revenue neutral, but actually improved revenue for their businesses, even though they were stark athletes against it. So I think we have to reach out as the council members. We have a bit more, we get a little bit more attention to these issues, and then try and motivate our base to go down stage and say, hey, this is important and it matters.
Did I hear you say minimum wage was one of those issues that would be important?
Minimum wage matters.
All right, Jasmine, hold that microphone, because we will start next with you.
Absolutely. We need to advocate and lobby at the state level, and we don't have to go too far, being that some of our state representatives sit right here within our city. What about Joe Taylor, who was our state representative, right, and David Niskoski, who was here? We don't have to go very far, but yes, we should be down there. Not only should our council members go down there, we need to take our citizens with us as well, because aren't we advocating for them on the long run? And you're absolutely right. It is a matter of making sure that we have those conversations, and it affects their community as well as our community. But right now, we're in a special space where we should be on the national stage even. So it's not even just our state legislature, but let's talk to Mayor Pete and take us on a national level. The eye is on the prize right here in South Bend, and we have a prime opportunity that many other places do not. And when we're talking about a minimum wage, I'm not hearing about a minimum wage. I want to hear about a living wage in simply South Bend. Let's put down a minimum wage and start making sure that our citizens can live off of what they make. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. So yes to what everybody else has said, because I agree, a resolution is, I mean, it's great, it makes you feel good, it's all puppy dogs and rainbows, and yay, we did something. But what we need to do is lobby and advocate. I do have lobbying experience when I was out of college, as I mentioned in my opening statement, so I have experience doing that. But we also need to partner with our teachers and our unions and ensure that when we're talking about minimum wage, when we're talking about living wage, that we're including these groups that are often not getting paid what they deserve. The city of South Bend has raised wages for their workers, which is great. We need to encourage our local businesses to do that and start adhering to grassroots efforts, and then haul our butts down to Indianapolis and start knocking on those legislator doors. It's going to take more than just our local leaders. It's going to take the entire state changing, and I think we can do that if we push hard enough.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to give you, this could take a long time.
I have no problem with that.
Please answer the question.
To answer your question, absolutely yes. I am interested in passing a resolution for the first time when we have a council meeting starting in 2020. The reason why I'm talking about a resolution drives the conversation to a different level, which creates the momentum, and creates the organizing mechanism, the power to push the state government to change the minimum wage. We have to start somewhere, and that's one of our tools. Just for us to say it's some warm and fuzzy idea, no. I passed over 24 legislative items within the South Bend City government over an 8-year period by using resolution form. So I think it's very necessary. It's a necessary and vital tool. But in the meantime, what we can do is do what my friend to my wife said. She agrees with community benefit agreements. We need to figure out how we retain the money here in South Bend. We make sure that the Public Works Division is actually enforcing what workers are on the job, why they're working on public works jobs. In order for us to grow economically, we have to retain our dollar here locally, and that's not by giving away our money to outside contractors. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this is the question that just keeps coming back, as it has for years. So apparently we're not done with it yet. We're trying to get to your questions. And folks would like to hear from you all tonight. We'll start with 2nd District and Amanda Gover-Conrad. And the question is, what are your views on the issue of the sealed police tapes? If the court allows them to be released, should they be released and played in their entirety? Or would that cause further dissension in the community?
Yes, they should be played. I don't believe our community can heal and get past this There's all sorts of rumors about what's on the tapes. Until we listen to them, until we hear them, we can't get past it. We can't move past it, and it's going to keep being a conversation that has been going on for a long time and will continue. So yes, I believe that if the state tapes become unsealed and we are allowed to play them, then we should absolutely play them. We have to get past it. Henry Davis Jr.
Sure, absolutely. That would be my answer. They need to be played, yes. But let me clarify some things. The tapes are not sealed. There's no court orders stating that the tapes cannot be played today, because the tapes can be played. There is a misunderstanding or a way of playing with a political football and trying to get people to believe that the courts need to still rule on if the tapes are actually lawful or not. The courts have never said that they were unlawful. So the tapes can be played based upon the literature and the orders that we do have. And yes, they should be played.
Jasmine Brown.
Can I get 10 seconds back from the clapping, please? Thank you. All right, yes, the tapes should be played. Matter of fact, I was part of the original group, Citizens United for a Better Government, that was wanting the tapes to be played in the first place. We were the ones that took it to the council, took it to the mayor in the first place. So yes, absolutely, the tapes should be played. But let's also look at this. Millions of dollars have already been spent on this project, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, we know what is on the other side of those tapes. People would stalwart so long if they didn't want it to be played in the first place, if they're not hiding something in the first place. So let's look at this. Why don't we already assume we know what's on the tapes? We know what is going on in our city for the longest time. Let's make sure that we understand that individuals have been downsized, have been downcasted, have been discriminated against in this city for a long time. And let's make sure we move forward as a community and we start healing and we start bringing each other together to repair our community. I said hear the tapes. I said that first. That was the first comment I made. Hear the tapes. That was the first thing I said. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jasmine. We now move to District 4, and we start with Troy Warner.
So as an attorney, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the state of Indiana and the United States. And contrary to Mr. Davis's statement, there's a court case going that's going to make a determination upon the validity of the tapes and whether these would have violated law or not. I will go with the decision that the court makes. If the court makes the decision that these tapes can be played, then we will play the tapes. If the court doesn't make a decision that the tapes can be played, then the tapes won't be played.
Dave Matthews.
Gosh, it's an expensive set of cassette tapes, right? Holy cow. I mean, imagine we spent that $1 million if you on like sidewalks or pre-K or something that like mattered in Mayor City. So if it's legal and it's cheap, let's play the tapes. But if we're gonna spend another $2 or $3 million as a city or a couple $1 million as a city, let's do something better with that money and that time and fix the problem that we know there's there.
Thank you. Elvin Blakely Jr.
Well, being a police officer, I feel that anything that involves policing, it is public records, especially if it's involved policing and community. Tapes need to be played, but my motto for my election is to move forward to our future. We need to also look at, once those tapes are played, what are we going to do after they're played? That's the question that we need to look at. What is the project next? What is the move next? Once those tapes get played, what is it going to do for our city? And that's what we need to look at now. There's not one question, that's two questions. Play the tapes, yes, and look at what we're going to do for the future. We need to get that project out the way, move forward.
Thank you. The next question will go first to Henry Davis Jr. of District 2.
Yes.
It says, the schools have their own school board and their own superintendent. Is there anything that council members can actually do to improve schools, especially those in your district?
Absolutely. I get excited about this because I think that we haven't created ways of having this dialogue. So the first thing I will say is that I authored an ordinance that goes upon our committee to meet with the South Bend Community School Corporation on a regular basis. We need that type of involvement because we need to start talking about industry, we need to start talking about training, we need to start talking about curriculum. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we need to figure out how do we de-TIF within the city of South Bend that allows more money to go into our school corporation so they can start raising salaries, so they can start doing different type of programming that is totally needed within our school corporation. So those are two big things right there that we can do automatically with the tentacles that we have as the South Bend Common Council. There is also a partnership that I really spoke about and worked on before I left council, and that was making sure that we were using our schools on alternative days in gyms or within the library or even like the computer lab to make sure that those resources are given to the community regardless of schools in secession or not. So there are multiple ways that we can partner and to build a better bridge for our community school, for our South Bend Community School Corporation and also the council, Common Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going next to Jasmine Brown.
Absolutely. Partnerships and the resources in our community and the assets we have here in South Bend definitely can help how should I say it? We should help supplement what the South Bend Community School Corporation already has. We're talking about training programs. We already have vast amount of programs inside of our city that can help these kids that are coming out that don't want to go to college. We have how many universities sitting inside of our community doors that can also be helping these students that want to go on to college. How about the assets and the resources inside of our community as far as individuals go that have jobs or have small businesses that can pass on soft skills to the students within our schools? How about opening our school doors to our community members to making sure that we can use these resources while the kids are on the school grounds and not just waiting for them to come out to help part of our community? Absolutely. We need to build partnerships and use the assets and resources already in our community to help supplement the school work.
Thank you. Amanda Over-Conrad.
So, what we really need to do is focus on the neighborhoods around schools, because a lot of these kids, when they're going to school, they're hungry, their parents got into a fight, or they're homeless, or whatever the case may be, and they can't focus on school. We also need to make sure that our teachers are paid appropriately for the work that they do, because Lord knows anybody who works in a school deserves a halo for the work that they put in. The other thing is, piggybacking off of what Jasmine said, I've actually been talking to some of our local building trades about partnering and teaching these kids how to do something beyond just the four-year college path. Everybody thinks that college is great and amazing, and it is, but it's not for everyone. We recently fostered a 17-year-old who was not going to be able to go to college. Her dream was to be a mechanic, and I think we need to show these kids that we believe in them beyond just the classroom, and that we believe in them in ways that will help them benefit the rest of their lives.
Thank you. And now we move to District 4, starting with Dave Matthews.
So there's kind of silos, the school board, superintendent's in charge of the school, but the city, we cheat a little bit, and we have TIF. And we can't tell the city, the school board what to do, but we can use our TIF dollars. We don't want to release TIF because then it goes back to the schools, it also goes to the library, it goes to the county. We want to keep TIF and use that and direct funds towards specific needs. And that would give the city council a way to have accountability of the school, saying, hey, you want to do this extra program, here's money to do it. And we can use that to encourage interdepartmental communications, right? It was shocking that a few years ago we came up with this program to repave sidewalks around schools. It's like our public works department didn't know that sidewalks around schools were important so that people could walk to the school if they're in the neighborhood. And that's just like a sign that, hey, if we can band together on the city council and hold up the budget approval process until these different departments agree to have meetings with other community players, the library, the school board, school members, then we can make a lot of good. And I'm not
Thank you. Melvin Blakely Jr.
Yes, I do believe that collaboration would be much needed. We need to work together. Our fund, to echo what they were saying, the funding will be needed to assist with other programs. Even more important, we can have adult classes, trade programs in the schools that will help some of the individuals that can't get jobs right now. And also we can assist with, we have a problem with bus drivers. We have a problem with teachers not getting paid. So we need to work together to try to end these problems. Also, we will try to assist on not shutting down schools. My motto for my organization is education can help decrease incarceration. Some people don't know what type of laws and what type of problems that they can incur. But a good education can help deter from going to jail or doing those things that they do. I don't think any kid wake up wanting to do wrong. They just failed at their dreams or something. So city council assisting with the school corporation would be a great idea.
Thank you. Troy Warner.
I will echo and add. I kind of agree with everybody to this point. I think really what we need to do with the schools is increase funding, and you do that by increasing enrollment. And I think one of the duties and the obligations that the city council has is to be a cheerleader and a champion for the local schools. I've had 2 kids that have gone through South Bend schools, and there are amazing things happening in South Bend schools. The arts programs are incredible. I judged the regional mock trial competition a few weeks ago, and some of the kids there were better than baby boomer seasoned attorneys. The amount of preparation and time that we're putting into it. We have literally coming out of South Bend schools, there are hundreds of student athletes who are getting scholarships and going on to colleges. There are thousands of students that get college scholarships coming out of South Bend schools every year. You don't hear about that. You hear about the one fight that ruins the reputation and puts a stain on that school forever. So I think we all need to be cheerleaders and champions for our schools.
Thank you very much. Pass that right next door back to Melvin. We are going to hear our next question, which is, upon becoming part of the Common Council, what will you do to help improve police-community relations?
I was told that South Bend Police Department and the community is not on the same page. One thing I would do is initiate a community police officer, a liaison officer that can actually put a program together to not just meet with block clubs, not just meet with the neighborhoods, but to meet with the liaison officers at the schools. One of the things that I did was I started a program, I initiated and assisted with the program at Garrett for Citizen Community Policing. If you never taken that program, you need to take it. It would open your eyes to what the police go through. But at the same time, police need to get involved with the community. How many police officers actually live in your neighborhood? How many police officers actually drive cars that live in your neighborhood? Their cars live in the neighborhood, stay in the neighborhood. So a lot of things that I would do is make sure that our police officers are living within our communities. I think Chicago has a program. If you want to be a part of the police department, you need to actually live in the city. That's all.
Thank you. Troy Warner.
I work for the county sheriff, for Sheriff Redmond, the county police department. One of the very first things that we did when Sheriff Redmond took over was they had a night out where the police department would set up and we would want the community, they would want the community to come to them and visit them, and attendance wasn't very good, right? So we quit that, we canceled that. And so one of the changes we've made is now we are trying to go everywhere the community is and go out and be in the community, go to church picnics, go to spaghetti suppers, go to fish fries, go to Boy Scout bake sales and everything like that. I think that that is the community policing effort. We have made efforts to increase recruiting, just like Melvin said, getting officers that live in all of the neighborhoods in the city and recruiting officers from those neighborhoods. There are currently shortages of officers, and so there's an opportunity here to recruit and create more relationships within the neighborhoods by hiring officers that live right in those neighborhoods.
Thank you. Dave Matthews.
So when we were trying to get people to move back into the East Bank neighborhood, one of the things that we pushed the administration to do, and we succeeded for a while, is not just have a police presence to have real safety, but have a pedestrian police officer to improve perception of safety. And I think that goes a long way if there's somebody walking around that hopefully is bored, so then they have to talk to you, and you're at the park, they'll come over and have a chat, and not your passing tone. I mean, they have to become comfortable in a familiar face, and hopefully they live in the neighborhood, they live in the community, and that's like, we have to keep building a community. We're a city, but we're a city of 100,000 people with a lot of very specific and different neighborhoods, and we need to figure out how to engage people at the block level and make them feel welcome and safe and connected to their neighbors, and so that if they have a problem, there's a conversation, there's not silent frustration, and that we can work together, communicate better, and then also build trust in our system.
Thank you. We move now to the District 2 candidates, starting with Jasmine Brown.
Let's start first with breaking the school to prison pipeline. We spend $1 million inside of our schools to house SRO officers. So these kids are growing up with policemen already on top of them, making them look like almost criminals, if you will, anyway. We have to break that cycle and start making sure that if we are having SRO officers inside of our schools, that they're community liaisons too. Meaning, they don't not need to be seen inside the schools, but they also need to be seen inside the communities. What about walking police officers or biking the police officers like they had a couple of years ago? It's one thing to see them up and down flashing lights across the street. It's another one that they're unapproachable when you come to their vehicles. You almost feel like you're in the wrong yourself. How about walking down to the county and having people that are happy to see you and doesn't feel like you're a criminal when you're going down to pay your tax bills? Let's also talk about, or when I talk to my Kennedy Neighborhood Association members, they're talking about the police are unresponsive, or they feel like they're not welcome, or they can't have the conversations that they need to have. Let's make sure that these individuals are being a partner inside of our community as well, and making sure that they feel that they are part of the community and the citizens feel the same way.
Thank you. Amanda Gilbert Conrad.
You're third. So one of the things I think we look at doing is implicit bias testing. And for those of you who may not know what it is, it's basically the officer would go to a computer and a series of images flash, and they take like an instant reaction to it, and it helps you realize your own biases. And a lot of our officers, and I've experienced this myself in my own neighborhood, when they show up, they automatically assume, they make a snap judgment about what situation they're going in. And I think if we show them and then show them their bias and then give them training so that they can help overcome their bias, that would help us a lot with a lot of trust issues. Also, I would love to see a return to old school B cops. When I grew up in Old Belleville on the west side, I knew the police officers that patrolled our neighborhood. I never had to worry about who was going to show up. I knew them. They knew us, they knew our family. And there was never a cause for concern when you did have to call them. They didn't show up with guns blazing, they showed up because they actually cared about their community.
Thank you.
Mr. Blakely, I completely agree with you about if you work for the city, you should live in the city. But brother, that was a fight. I'm telling you, I worked really hard to get that done for a couple of different reasons. I do believe 80% of our officers, or over 80% of our officers, live outside the city, into the county areas, even past that as well. How do we get the relationship better? Citizens Review Board. I worked extremely hard to get a Citizens Review Board put in place. And you say that we have a board of public safety, sure, but that's an appointment by the mayor's office. We need people who are real people sitting on the board when it's time to talk about why Erica Flores died the way she did, and finding out how to get to a better resolution quicker than we can with somebody playing bureaucracy or playing politics. So the Citizens Review Board, and then we also need to concentrate on homegrown talent. And also the V-Cops. I believe in that. I installed a substation downtown with then Chief Wiggins. Somehow, somebody that just kind of like evaporated. But that did some great work for the folks downtown, visiting downtown. They knew they were safe. He could have played part to what happened this morning with South Bend Chocolate Factory in Colorado. So we definitely need V-Cops as well. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question will start with our District 2 candidates. It goes first to Amanda Govers Conrad, and the question is, what will you bring to the table for youth in your district and in our community?
Was that for youth?
Youth.
Okay, thank you. So as a parent of 2 teenagers and then foster kids, this is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. Our youth need something to do. We have some great community centers. I would love to see more activities there, but also going back to what I mentioned earlier about partnering with our labor unions and partnering with our community partners that are already in place. We've got to show these kids that we are invested in their future, that we are invested in them. We need to celebrate the kid that's going off to an apprenticeship the same way we do the kid that's going off to a college scholarship. We need to celebrate the kid that's going into his family business and not going on to college in the same way. There's a lot of schools do bid days, and you see them in the media. South Bend School Court puts them on their Facebook page. But what about the kid who's just going on to the labor union to learn how to build houses? We can celebrate that in the exact same way. We really just have to focus on making sure that our youth feel empowered and they don't feel disenfranchised. And my time's up, so I'll stop.
Thank you. Henry Davis Jr.
Yes, the kids in our neighborhood within the 2nd district, a lot of us like me, will be so awesome is that I am re-elected to a position of power and authority because they need to see a positive black male who's in leadership with capacity to make sure they feel like they are represented properly. I think that's first and foremost. 100 black men always talks about what they see is what they will become. Well, look, you have a shining star, a shining piece right now that you can actually put up front and say, hey, you can actually do that. The other thing that I think that, and I'm so amped about this, I'm really hyped up about this, is that our children need to be at the table when we're deciding laws. So there's no reason why our children, because they may not be able to vote, not being able to have a conversation about what policies need to be passed, what should be passed. So I'm going to install an academy, a second district academy, where we're actually teaching our children how it works, how to legislate, how to build new coalitions, and how to organize amongst your peers to get something done. We have went far beyond the test, and so now at this point we need to make sure that we're applying these things to give our children leadership skills and leadership capacity so they can take over when it's time for them to take over.
Thank you. All right, we don't usually have applause. I love it, but sometimes it seems kind of dull for the people watching at home, but let's keep it under control here, and let's move to Jasmine Brown.
Thank you so much. Over my years of working with the youth, there's one thing that I realized is that a lot of our programs cost money. Why can't we go to our neighborhood organizations and our community organizations to ask for them to volunteer their time in our community? I mean, it's one thing to toss a baseball and a football with a student in the park. It's one thing to read with them, and it's one thing to do that at the price of free. Why can't we invest in that and use our volunteering time in a positive way for our youth? Also, I think it's very important that we make youth part of our everyday business. Why can't there be a youth council? My kids, 2 of them serve on the South Bend Youth Task Force, and one of the most important things about their week is when they're working with Sherry P. and they're in the community, and they feel like there's somebody when they're up at the mayor's office, and they feel like there's somebody when they're talking about community issues and solving the issues at the table. And furthermore, why can't we use our youth to improve and help support other youth? Using their voice as on the main stage, and they can then feel like they're a part of the issues, solving the issues is a main piece. So we need to make sure that our youth are active in our community, not just as residents, but also make sure that they're active at the table to make sure things are getting done.
Thank you. We'll go now all the way to the end of the table here with Troy Werner, and I know the rotation might seem a little odd to you. This is just so we don't always have the same candidate answering a question first. And so Troy, we'll start with you, same question about what we will bring to the table for our youth.
Thank you. So I've raised some kids, and I think he is mentioned mentoring, tutoring, showing them love and support. The 4th District does not have a library, but one of the things it does have is the Robinson Center, which is an amazing organization that does all 4 of those things. It shows, it helps mentor our youth, tutor the youth, and shows them love, support, and guidance. I have talked to the current councilwoman, and she told me that one of the things I must do if I'm elected is to support that organization, get behind those women, and stay out of the way, and let them do their job, building the youth of our community, and that's one of the things I'm going to do.
Thank you. All right, we will next hear from Dave Matthews.
So, it's all about building community. We need to grow community engaged with young people. From the park side for the real young kids through teenagers, I think breaking down and the neighborhood parks and figuring out how to get local ownership and attention that you can have influence and grow your park. I think on the mentorship side, for especially for middle and teenagers, it's good to get adults into the schools and to figure out how to, sometimes teenagers listen better when it's not their parents telling them the same thing. And so it helps to get business leaders, tradesmen, workers, people who care, seniors, volunteering again and active in our community and with our youth. And sometimes it just takes a council person to say, hey, it's okay to do this. Please go do it. And let people feel enabled to make our neighborhoods better and connect with our young people.
Mr. Langston.
From elected, first thing I would like to do is work on the traffic in the area. Everybody knows that the traffic is very bad by my house, especially around 5 o'clock. It seems like everything is laid out. One thing I noticed too, we need a rec center in the area. We don't have a real good rec center in the area. Remodel some of the parks over in the area. We're going to seek funding. I would like to seek funding, separate funding for my district to have actual patrol on certain days and certain nights. And they have a program called Weed and Seed that I'm very familiar with. It's where you weed out the bad, the seed, and the good. And I would like to assist in that program. And also more bike safety and monthly meetings. We can get involved with what's going on. Even if they didn't attend the council meeting, I would like to have a monthly meeting where I can actually go over what the council did, what we spoke about, and what we can bring to our district. And meet with all the community leaders, all the district leaders, neighborhood leaders. All right.
Thank you very much. This next question, yes, thank you. This next question will go first to District 4, and we'll put 30 seconds on the clock. It says, and it goes first to Dave Matthews, then to Melvin Blakely, and then to Troy Warner. And it says, do you have any personal or professional activities that could be perceived as a conflict of interest? If so, how will you address this perception?
So I get asked that question a lot because I do real estate development. When we go before the city council, we tend to get a lot of attention. And thank you to the public for helping support building taller buildings and increasing the tax base and getting more people living downtown, where it makes our city more efficient and everything. But people see that as a potential conflict of interest. And if my project was going up, it would be, and I'd have to recuse myself. But I think in the past 8 or 9 years, we've only gone before the city council for 2 different parcels. It's like every 4 or 5 years we go up, and nothing in our current timeline has us going before the city council for something that might be a conflict of interest.
Thank you. Melvin Blakely Jr.
I would have nothing to stop me from getting involved with the city council. One thing I will say is a lot of times people say, well, you're a police officer, you think everything that the police do is right, negative. I believe what is right is right. And I've had many people come to me and ask me questions about what the police did this, police did that. Well, let me look into it, because if they didn't do something right, we would go before the police chief or whoever to speak on their behalf. But it's not about being a police officer. I'm the type of person that I like to make sure that the community is safe. And if the police are not doing their job, then guess what? You need to go.
Thank you. Troy Warner.
Thank you. I guess I could potentially, so I've got some small businesses that I represent, so I guess that they generally don't do work with the city, but I would, if I had that, I would disclose that, or if there was an issue with any of my clients or any of my clients' competitors, I would be completely transparent about that and deal with that as the matter came up.
Thank you. We'll go now back to District 2, and starting with Henry Davis Jr.
No. Not at all.
Okay, Jasmine Brown.
No, I have no conflicts of interest. My job on city council will be the interest, and that's the public and the people that I serve in my community.
Amanda Govert Conrad.
No, I mean, I work for a small family-owned business out by the airport called Adams Rumco. I work in the building department, so no there. And also, as a foster parent, no, there's no conflict, other than I want to be an advocate for kids who don't have a voice. So I guess if that's a conflict, then call me guilty.
Okay. All right. Okay, we are going to stay there with District 2 then for our next question. Then a question will go first to Jasmine Brown. How will you ensure that more economic development continues to come to South Bend to build our economic base?
Ensuring that economic development comes back to South Bend. Well, first, I think we need to start intrinsically, and we need to start with small businesses. In District 2, we have a lot of businesses that are ran out of garages. We have a lot of businesses that are ran right out of the front lawns. And these individuals need storefronts, and they need places to go to promote their businesses even further. When it comes down to it, we also have a lot of daycares and faith-based ministries right here inside of our community. Those are the individuals we need to invest in first. Making sure that they have a tax base, some tip dollars to come from, and they help put back into our tax base. So right there, we have a simple solution to building our tax base. And then also, when it comes down to it, we need to think of jobs that are coming into South Bend that are more than just the innovative tech jobs, that are made for individuals that are master's degree and higher. We need to make sure that jobs come in that supply a living wage to our residents, and making sure that those jobs are available to everybody.
Thank you. Amanda Govert Conrad.
So first, we need to make sure that we're revitalizing our neighborhoods and we're doing all this without gentrification, because it's a huge issue, especially in the 2nd District. It's a very big fear. One of the ways we can do that is rezoning lots for mixed use. So as Jeff mentioned, we have a lot of people who are operating businesses out of their homes. We need to ensure that they can have storefronts, and a lot of cities are doing this. Again, I'm going to use Detroit as an example. We visited there over Thanksgiving, and they're doing a lot of amazing things where they're, apartments upstairs and, storefronts downstairs. A lot of cities are doing that. We could do that all along Lincoln Way. It would be a really, really great asset to the city. It has already been done, you're right, and it can continue. The other thing is that we need to create green space too, because when we're talking about neighborhoods, when we're talking about economic development, we cannot forget that green space. It's been proven that where there is green space, there is my time is out. I'll talk to you about it afterwards if you want to.
Henry Davis Jr.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to do that. I was thinking out loud. We did that under Jeff Yenny was the head of the Community Redevelopment Commission. Well, not Redevelopment Commission, but the, thank you. Please help me out. Yeah, he was the head of it, so we did that, and it happened downtown, but not at a high level. What can we do? Could you ask the question again, please? I lost it.
Yes, and what will you do to bring more economic development to the city of South Bend?
Yeah, well, so that's a difficult question to answer in a minute time, and I got 30 seconds. How do you do it? That's almost like school conversation that you have to have, right? So developers, businesses that come into the city are scouting the area. They are first looking at your public school corporation. If that school corporation is not operating at a high level, then they're going to bypass it because they have to bring their workers, they have to bring their families to this area. And so they have to have quality schooling. So that's number one, and that's paramount on the list. Number two, obviously, is city funding and infrastructure improvements. We have to make sure that we are actually doing that. And if we're not doing that, then we're probably gonna miss out on a lot of recruitment opportunities.
Thank you. We go now to District 4, starting with Melvin Blakely Jr.
One of the things I would do is try to initiate business to come in that will actually bring attention to the city for the good reasons, bring money into the city. Also, that would, bring money in the city for the city individuals and not for their own, beneficial. Bring in individuals that will come and live in the city, move in the city, move in the houses in the city, and, just make sure that we initiate, the business that come in that will help the city. We don't want someone to come in that's just basically, benefiting themselves. That's basically why.
Thank you. Troy Warner.
Thank you. So this is a 60-minute question, but we'll give a 60-second answer. So I was recently at a zoning meeting a few weeks ago, and there were four businesses that were there seeking a variance in the zoning, and the DCI reps, community investment reps were there, and they only spoke for one of these businesses. They spoke for the one that was obviously the very largest, the one that had the most money, the most connections, and there were 3 other small businesses that were owned by individuals, they were run by individuals, and the owners were very unprepared for the questions of the DCA panel. I was stunned. I think we need to be providing support, especially 2 of these were West Side businesses that were going into neighborhoods who need the business. And I think the city needs to be supporting all levels of business, and DCI should be reaching out to those. Obviously, they were on the agenda for the meeting, and they could have looked at that and reached out and talked to those folks and helped them be prepared for their zoning.
Thank you. Dave Matthews.
So, 60 seconds. I do business. I on the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, St. Chris College for Spark. We teach people how to start businesses. There are so many unsexy ordinances on our books that make it tough for people to start a business. It's tough enough to start it. There's things we can do to eliminate it. So, yeah, we can help them with the Board of Zoning Appeals, but wouldn't it be nicer if they could just do what makes sense and not have to take their evening out and go to a meeting to get permission? That's common sense anyway. But those things have to be fixed by the city council so that they don't even have to go to the area board of zoning appeals. They don't have to go to the area plan commission. They don't need to apply every year. You open a restaurant and you open in July. Well, guess what? It takes 6 weeks to get permission to put a table outside on the sidewalks. Like, then you have to take it off by September. So that's not going to get done. Or sign ordinances, almost so many of them get approved at the area board of zoning appeals. Why not just make the sign ordinance easier so people can just design a sign and put it up? And it applies to every level of small business and big business that.
Thank you. We're going to have today's day here with District 4. See, somebody brought a typed question instead of a note card, and this looks like the same person who submitted this question to the at-large candidates. It says question for District 4 candidates, and this will go first to Troy Warner. Over the past 2 years, there have been numerous home and car burglaries in the Edison Park neighborhood, southeast of the Notre Dame campus, and in the area directly south of campus in Harder Heights, even in broad daylight. Do you have any special knowledge about or insight into this concentrated wave of crime near the university? And what do you think can be done about it? Since more rental properties are located near Notre Dame, is there a special kind of solution at hand?
There were a lot of questions tied in there. I think one of them was, do you have any special knowledge or insight into the crimes? No, I have no special knowledge or insight. Special solutions, I think you have more officers, beat officers in that area. I don't know the rentals or anything in that Notre Dame area. I've had these discussions with a number of people that don't like the rental houses, they don't like the seasonal football tenants. Those people are paying property taxes, they're supporting the community. I think, other than more active And some of the methods that I talked about being proactive with crime earlier, would be my solutions.
Thank you. Dave Matthews.
So my great uncle was a Catholic priest, and one thing he was very good at is walking into the neighborhoods, south side of Chicago, and talking with people, and getting them to know each other and inviting them to church. And today churches aren't as important, but we still need community leaders who will walk through the neighborhood and help make those connections so that, right, if a car's getting stolen at night and say, hey, we need better street lighting, if it's getting stolen during the day, well, maybe somebody should have noticed that something was amiss. And that comes by people paying attention and knowing who lives on their block, knowing their neighbors, and having better neighborhood relations and connections. And that's something that we can push forward by kind of help reinvesting in our neighborhood resource corporation and having that trickle down to the block level, not just the half dozen neighborhoods in the 4th district.
Melvin Blakely Jr.
Do we have anybody from District 4 here? Yes, thank you. Okay, one of the things I'm trying to start is Project Stop. I had that started in Gary. The acronym for STOP is start telling people. You have a car sitting in your block and it's been sitting there for days and you don't know who car it is, call police, tell them. So more police patrol, educating the neighborhood on what to look out for. That's what the Citizen Academy is for, to help build better block clubs. It's not just a neighborhood club, it's a block club. Get to know your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors. And we also need to actually implement reserve police officers. I know a lot of people are like, why do we need reserve police officers? Well, if we got reserve police officers, those guys can actually spend more time patrolling and let the better police officers spend more time with serious crimes. So we do need to implement a reserve police department and get more reserve police officers out here to start doing more patrolling. So get involved with your neighbors.
Thank you very much. We'll go now to District 2, and the question is related then, which is, other than what you've already talked about in terms of building police-community relations, what can you do to reduce crime in your district? Amanda.
Lighting, I know that's a huge issue in the 2nd district. I'll start off with that. My neighborhood, for example, I live over by Sunrise Cafe, and lighting is a major problem at night in our neighborhood. We don't have any streetlights out, but you would think that we did. If you go a couple blocks up into the 1st district, they have brand new streetlights, and it's really nice. We don't have that where I'm at. So when we're talking about fighting crime, we have to make sure that our lighting is appropriate. The other thing too is it just goes back to neighbors talking to neighbors. If you know who your neighbors are, if you know who lives on your street or even one street over, you know who's supposed to be there and who's not supposed to be there. And we have to stop being afraid of calling people out and saying, hey, what are you doing? We have to take ownership of our neighborhoods again. I feel like that's kind of fallen away, and we have to really dig deep and cross those lines, whatever they may be that keeps us from talking to our neighbors.
Thank you. Henry Davis Jr.
Question again, please.
What can you do to reduce crime in your district?
I don't think that, like the 2nd district is involved. I think it's a city issue. First. Second of all, I've said this before, I'm going to stay there. Jobs and investment into certain areas that need it the most. When you see an area that has disinvestment, has not been taken care of economically for a number of years, you can pinpoint the crime is going to happen right over there. You know the crime is going to happen over there. If you look at the crime maps, where it's lit up in red at is where you have the most economic downturn. We have to have jobs. We have to make sure there's investment happening in the areas that need it the most. I think that's paramount in getting people to slow down with criminal activity. Thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine Brown.
In the 2nd district, we need to realize that police are not always the answer, and neither is an armadillo. But what needs to happen is community liaisons. First, violence needs to be looked at as a communicable disease in our community, and it needs to be solved, and it needs to be cured. District 2 is no stranger to the acts of violence, but we are the highest rate of crime amongst all districts in South Bend. But one thing that we need to look at is we need to look at poverty disparities in our community. That needs to be addressed. We need to make sure there's access to resources, and divestment that needs to stop inside our community and make sure that our unsafe living conditions are repaired. We need to make reinvestment back into our community and collaboration between community members, our policing agencies, and community organizations, as well as our schools. Lastly, education needs to happen. Community members need to build relationships and recognize their role to ending violence. And last but not least, restorative justice practices need to be implemented across the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we hear from the candidates with their closing statements, I want to make a few very quick announcements. Number one, thank you all for being here and thank you for your questions. All of those questions came from you, so thank you for bringing those with you this evening or submitting them to our volunteers. Secondly, we would appreciate it if you fill out this handy dandy little survey that will put you on our email list so that you don't miss future events. There will be a networking reception where you can talk more with the candidates. And after these closing statements, we're going to have one more person. You see him on the program for a minute at the mic will be Tyler Gillian. We have an open primary. If some of you are wondering which party primary ballot to draw, Tyler is running unopposed in the Republican Party primary. That's why he's not at the table today, but he is in the room. And so what we're doing this season is to offer those candidates running unopposed a minute at the mic, and then you can talk with him more out during the networking reception. We are going to continue in the order here on my rotating of candidates moderator sheet, and that means we will hear first with the 30-second pitch telling you why he deserves your vote on or before Election Day, Henry Davis Jr.
You always ask me the hard questions first. So, why? Because I'm experienced, I'm driven, I have been a champion for the people and also an advocate. I've gotten the job done. I have proof to show you that the job has been done. I'm interested and I have never stopped serving the public even when I was outside of the council. I desire to be back on council so that the momentum that was started then can carry on and grow even deeper and larger into the city. I'm invested, I'm a homeowner, I'm a family man, and I'm interested in also seeing the city of South Bend to do the same thing, invest in itself and grow families here. I think that we have an awesome opportunity here to get this thing done, and that's why I believe that I should be re-elected to city council.
We will hear next from Jasmine Brown.
I thank you all for being here again tonight and sitting with us and listening to us. But I am willing to have those courageous conversations that have not been discussed and had yet. I am willing to question and demand answers from my community. I don't want to be the one representative voice. I want the community to be the voice. I just want to be the person that comes through to come across. I want to partner with my community and make sure my community is put on the forefront above all else. And I want to make sure that I work with District 2 to repair and heal our neighborhood. I want to begin to retell the West Side story and make sure the positive comes out instead of the negative. Thank you for your time.
And Amanda Gover-Conrad.
So first, thank you all for coming out tonight and listening to us. You've heard a lot of information thrown your way, and I encourage you to use this as a jumping off point and get to know each of us a little bit more. I want to focus on tenants' rights, as you've heard tonight, youth empowerment, and also being a voice for the quietest voice in the room, because so often we only hear from the loudest voices. And I think it's really important in a city of our size that we start paying attention to those small corners of our city that have not been heard from and have been neglected. And unfortunately, that is the 2nd District.
Thank you, Amanda. And now we hear from the District 4 candidates, starting with Dave Matthews.
I'm from South Bend. I care, I'm invested, and do spend a lot in the past 10 years trying to help make South Bend a better place. I've been frustrated by our ordinances and our city council and some of the decisions that haven't been made. And I think I'm a good advocate representative for our district to help clean up some of the ordinances and make it easier for do what they want in South Bend. It'll make it better for people to start businesses, to establish, run businesses, improve our schools, all the good things that everyone here kind of wants to see happen.
Thank you, Dave. Melvin Blakely Jr.
Vote for me because I am a team player. I am experienced in budgeting. I'm a leader. I'm also experienced in getting things done in the community. I'm not afraid to answer questions. I'm not afraid to speak my mind. I'm not afraid to represent my community. And last but not least, I don't have any ties that's going to lock me down to nothing that's involved in South Bend. That's I don't have nothing that's saying that I wouldn't be a team player. Everything I do it for my community, and I want to make sure that this should full rise to the top.
Thank you, Elton. And Troy Warner.
If I'm elected, I will answer your phone calls, I will reply timely to your emails, I will meet you at your front door and sit down at your kitchen table and listen to your concerns and try to find a solution to your problem. I will meet deadlines and I will not overpromise. I will dot all the I's and I will cross all the T's. I have been trained through my working career to be analytical, be a critical thinker and a problem solver, and work for win-win-win solutions. There's nothing more valuable than the relationship that would be created between you and me if you give me your vote. I promise that I will work hard and uphold that relationship and that obligation. Vote Troy Warner, thank you.
And I would just like to have us give one more round of applause for these candidates. So wonderful to have 3 candidates here for each district. They clearly care about their communities. They're passionate about the city of South Bend. This benefits all of us to have all of these candidates. So let's give them one more round of applause.
Absolutely.
So Tyler is, as I mentioned, the lone Republican on the ballot, but we did want you to have an opportunity to get to know him and perhaps chat with him out in the hallway.
Yes, I'm the lone Republican. I don't like. Thank you all for coming out. I really think South Bend is at a crossroads. I know that we talk up here, all these candidates have fantastic ideas, but really, we have some severe problems going on. I mean, I don't know if you all saw the news just this morning. Our most prominent downtown business, South Bend Chocolate, was broken into pretty much at the beginning of the workday. 48 hours ago, we had 2 IUSB students almost killed at a house party on a street bearing the name of our most prominent employer in town. These are things, I mean, in the 4th district, once again, show of hands, who's in our 4th district again? Were you guys aware that we don't even have a shot spotter in our district?
Yes, very much.
We don't have a shot spotter. I mean, that's a huge problem. We are also 20 to 30 police officers shy of adequate patrol levels.
That's right.
I constantly have people, I even had some gentleman today, I gave out my address, and I was sure you don't trust that I'm giving you guys in the 4th district. And he dropped this off at my house, which detailed the Edison neighborhood issues that they've been having. We have to come together, like I think Melvin brought this up, which was a great point, not to get into campaign time, but it was a really good point. We have to know our neighbors. I think that in today's day and age, where we're glued to our cell phones or really not even leaving the house, especially with like Uber Eats or things like that, there's no point that we feel to go out and meet our neighbors. And really that's when crime takes its opportunity. So I think that there's going to take a lot, it's going to take a titanic effort really to fix this problem. And I think this microphone is part of it. Also, our roads. Let's see. There we go. Our roads are crumbling. That's pretty obvious. I know that we've done some major facade upgrades to some of our streets in the downtown area, which is fantastic, but there's more to South Bend than just downtown. We have River Park, we have the West Side corridors, we have Miami Village, Rum Village. These places don't get talked about enough. There's just a prominent business in Miami Village, Javier's Bistro, which was some of the most fantastic food in town. It just went out of business. It wasn't given the attention that was needed. Honestly though, it goes back to the infrastructure, right? Our cars, if you're making $19,000 a year as an income in this city. Imagine if you blow out your tire on, say, Sample Street, or you blow it on a side street. I mean, you're going to have to change out those tires. So imagine making $19,000 a year, driving your car, working to a job that is tough, and you have to then write a check for $400. I mean, that shouldn't happen. We need to be able to reprioritize these things, especially with infrastructure. I mean, we have to invest in it. So whether you're rich, poor, black, white, it doesn't matter. This is a shared experience. And I really, truly think that we have to be able to then reprioritize our budgets to make sense to be able to address the issues that matter to your average person. So once again, Tyler Gillian, I'll be outside, Republican running for 4th District. Feel free to badger with any question you have. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Go to our YouTube channel. We'll be getting this up probably in the next 24 hours or so, and can enjoy some food or chat with our wonderful